The steel doors of Detention Block 7 hissed open, revealing Guard Commander Vex in full combat armor. His plasma rifle hummed with lethal potential as he surveyed the cell. What he saw defied every protocol in the interstellar penal code. Melissa stood in the corner, her prison jumpsuit torn and bloodied. Between her and the guard crouched a creature that shouldn't exist, a Zytheran predator cub, no larger than a wolf, its obsidian scales gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. The cub's 6 eyes blazed crimson, and its throat vibrated with a warning growl that made Vex's tactical visor flash danger signals. "Step away from the prisoner," Vex commanded, his weapon trained on the creature. The cub's twin tails lashed, razor-sharp spines extending. It didn't budge. Daniel emerged from the observation deck above, his biometric scanner clutched in trembling hands. As the station's xenobiologist, he'd been tracking anomalous life signs for 3 days. He never imagined he'd find this. "Commander, wait," Daniel called out, descending the metal stairs 2 at a time. "That's a Class 5 endangered species. It's barely 6 months old." "It's a Class 5 killing machine," Vex corrected. "Zytherans wiped out the mining colony on Kepler 442b, 1,700 dead in 4 hours. "Those were adults," Daniel insisted, though his voice wavered. "This one is." "Why is the predator cub protecting you?" Vex interrupted, his question directed at Melissa. His helmet's translator rendered his words in a dozen languages simultaneously. Melissa's gray eyes met the guard commander's without flinching. Her lips, cracked and bleeding, formed words that carried the weight of something deeper than fear or defiance. "Because I'm all it has." 3 weeks earlier, Melissa had been a cargo specialist on the prison transport Sisyphus, convicted of unauthorized data theft from the Terran Corporate Alliance. Her crime: exposing illegal genetic experiments on sentient species. The sentence: 15 years in the Phobos Maximum Security Station, orbiting Mars like a rusted tombstone. The cub had arrived in container 7743X, labeled as biological waste samples from the recently sterilized Zythara Prime. The planetary cleansing had been sanctioned by the Alliance after the Zytherans refused to surrender their territorial claims to mineral-rich systems. No survivors, the reports claimed. No exceptions. Melissa discovered the container during a routine inventory shift. The moment she broke the seal, she knew the manifest was a lie. Inside the cryochamber, curled in artificial hibernation, was the cub, its vital signs barely registering, its scales dull with malnutrition and trauma. She should have reported it, should have let the station's automated systems handle disposal. But Melissa had seen the classified files before her arrest. She knew what disposal meant for specimens like this: vivisection, weaponization testing, consciousness mapping until the subject's neural pathways burned out. Instead, she'd smuggled it to an unused maintenance shaft in the lower decks, where the surveillance grid had blind spots. She fed it synthesized proteins from the mess hall, water from the recycling tanks, and perhaps most importantly, she stayed. She spoke to it in soft tones, though she knew it couldn't understand standard. She sang lullabies her mother had sung to her, back when Earth still had oceans and open skies. The cub learned to recognize her footsteps. Its eyes tracked her movements with increasing intelligence. When it finally purred, a sound like distant thunder filtered through crystal, Melissa wept for the first time since her incarceration. "All it has," Vex repeated, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Prisoner 4729, you're facing execution for harboring a xenomorph threat. Your sentimentality." "It's not sentimentality," Daniel interrupted, his scanner beeping frantically. "Commander, look at these readings. The cub's cortisol levels are through the roof. Its amygdala activity suggests acute separation anxiety. It's bonded to her." "Zytherans don't bond," Vex stated flatly. "They're territorial apex predators with no pack instinct." Adult Zytherans don't bond, Daniel corrected, his eyes widening as data flooded his display. But juveniles. We never had the chance to study them. The species was declared extinct before, he stopped, realization dawning. Before we could understand their developmental psychology. Melissa coughed, blood speckling her lips. The station's security bots had beaten her when they found the cub's hiding place. 3 ribs broken, internal bleeding probable. She had maybe hours left without medical attention. The cub sensed her weakness. It pressed closer, its body heat radiating against her legs. One of its tails wrapped around her ankle, not constricting, but anchoring. The gesture was almost childlike. I found it dying, Melissa said, her voice strengthening despite her injuries. Starving and terrified, crammed in a box like garbage. The Alliance exterminated its entire species, Commander. Its parents, its siblings, its home world, everything. She paused, swallowing blood. I'm not defending it. I'm all it has left in the universe. Vex's weapon didn't lower, but something in his posture shifted. Behind his visor, shadows moved. Daniel stepped between the guard and the prisoner, his scanner still active. Commander, I'm formally requesting this specimen be transferred to xenobiological custody. The scientific value alone. The Alliance will never approve, Vex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then we don't tell the Alliance, Daniel replied. The words hung in the recycled air like a grenade, with an uncertain timer. Vex had spent 20 years in the service. He'd followed orders without question, believing in the system's integrity. But he'd also seen the classified reports after Zythara Prime. He knew about the illegal settlements, the resource theft, the fabricated provocation that justified genocide. He'd done nothing then, said nothing. The cub's eyes tracked him, ancient instinct and newfound trust warring in its alien gaze. Why? Vex asked, the question directed at everyone and no one. Why risk everything for one creature? Melissa smiled, blood staining her teeth. Because someone has to. Because if we can't show mercy to something this helpless, this innocent, then what's the point of all our evolution, all our technology? She looked down at the cub and it looked back, 6 eyes meeting 2 in perfect understanding. It chose to protect me. The least I can do is return the favor. Vex's finger hovered over the trigger. One squeeze and regulations would be satisfied. One squeeze and the last Zytheran in existence would cease to be a problem. He lowered his weapon. Biologist Daniel prepare a quarantine habitat in Lab 3. Prisoner 4729 is transferred to medical immediately. He turned to leave, then paused. This conversation never happened. Understand? Melissa collapsed, and the cub's howl of distress echoed through the station. A sound of grief and hope, loss and salvation, all tangled together. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. The cub pressed close, its body warmth keeping her alive just a little longer. In the cold mathematics of the universe, perhaps one life didn't matter. One creature, one human, one choice. But standing there in that prison cell, with blood on the floor and a predator cub weeping, they all understood a truth older than starships and empires. Every life saved is a universe preserved.